Hello there. My name is Ermina, also known as Tutu, Priestess Tutu, Reverend Tutu now, and a host of other names. um, Welcome and thanks for watching my video. I wanted to share today a little bit about cultivating our graces, specifically a subcategory of that, which is humility. I'll be doing about, I think, up to 9 mini videos on this topic. And from my perspective, so that's why I've changed the title from cultivating the graces to cultivating our graces, so that I'm not speaking about a faceless God, because as some of you know, the word the refers to faceless entity or God. Uh, do your research on it. I'm not going to go explain what that means. It's easy to find. You can just Google stuff. And so I want to make sure I'm specifically addressing our. Um, or my perspective on the graces based on my lineage, based on my studies, and so on and so forth. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about humility. And interestingly enough, I think many people who I work with struggle with this. We tend, and I include myself and the people that I work with, we tend to struggle with uh, having a healthy ego and having a humble way of life. Now, first, before I go into deep into this, I want you guys to really understand what I mean by humility. One of the ways under you can verify what I'm saying is to go on etymology online or etymon line, I think it's called, or any etymology website to learn about the original root word of humility, the original meaning of humility. Why is that important? Often we are using words in the current fashion, and the original vibration of the word still exists, because that's once you create something, the original vibration continues to be the undercurrent of it, even though it may get altered in the future. That's why we always go back to the root and then expand from there to ensure that the original vibration is where we're growing from, rather than growing from the external vibrations, which tends to be corrupted version of the original. So the word humility doesn't mean what we think it means today. Actually, its meaning changed significantly over, I think it was 14th century. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull this up so I can just make it short and sweet. The original meaning of it is, it comes from the word, the Pi root, DHGHAM, meaning earth, humus, HUMUS, meaning earth, literally meaning underground, okay? Whereas early 14th century, it kind of changed and became more about modesty, sweetness, lowness, small stature, insignificance, baseness, littleness of mind. That's really what most people think it means, because that's where they um, the word fell to. That's where it became corrupted to mean. But the original meaning really speaks of being underground or in the ground or earthing. So when someone is humble, they are down to earth. They are part of the earth. They are connected with Mother Nature. It does not mean that person doesn't have a healthy ego. And that's one thing that needs to be clarified. It doesn't mean that person is self deprecating. It just means a person is close to the earth. They understands the seed of who they are. They understand the seed of Mother Nature. Humility keeps us from destroying ourselves. It keeps us from destroying our communities and destroying the planet. If and when we understand that we are part of the earth, that we are connected deeply with the earth, we tend to treat it with uh, a partnership, a collaboration as a result of that. And that applies to ourselves. When we understand or see self, we also collaborate with ourselves rather than try to destroy part of ourselves or others, which we know is very common today. Humility is also connected to the fool, or the original self, meaning when we look at who we become, like who I am today, so many decades later, how close am I to the seed purpose of my creation? That's how I can stay humble, is to connect to the seed purpose of my humility after I've made maybe multiple iterations of completed certain aspects of growth. How close am I still to the original, my original self, okay? My uh, divine self, okay? In the earth, which is also part of that because we're connected, as you all know. Well, some of you know. But anyways, so understanding that I come from that perspective. So any video you watch that I talk about humility, I'm not talking about the modern day definition, because the modern day definition, just like clothes, just like everything else that we have, is a corruption of an original vibration. And so it doesn't reflect the true deeper vibration of the word, which is still in operation, which is still what moves this particular word to fruition, to create something. All right. What I really wanted to add to today is about the connection between humility and ancestral work. The, the most humble people are the ones who work with their hands, and you will find that to be true because they're close with the earth. And I'm not talking about working with your hands on computers, because in a way we do manipulate our world using our hands, our mani, right? Using the computers, but I'm talking about working with the earth itself, not a byproduct of the earth, which is what the computer is. So as we're working with the earth, we tend to really understand the various cycles of growth, the various cycles of growth, which includes death, which includes returning to zero, and then increasing that um, knowledge of not knowing by a few degrees in order for us to evolve to a higher level. Now, what I mean by that is we often hear people say 360. We want to do 360 turn. Well, 360 is going back exactly where you were. Okay, so 360 is not evolution. 360 is a return to the basis, to return to the full state, a return to the self. And that's important. We need to do a 360, but once you do a 360, you got to then do a 1 all the way up to a 9 to evolve yourself to a higher state of being and repeat that over. So every time you do 360, you're going up. Or you can do less than a 360 and actually devolve and go down. So this is for you numerology folks who love numerology. So the 360 takes us back to our root, takes us back to the full state. It takes us back to the original seed self. There's a anti-seed self society that many of us live in. We live in a society that says, don't go back. Don't honor, worship, or understand your root. Don't honor, worship, or respect your original seed, your original, the root self, which include, of course, our ancestors. And this is intentionally done, and maybe sometimes unintentionally done by many people as a way to keep you under control. If you go back to your original, if you go back to your seed, if you go back to your creation um, uh, ancestors' original thought, so to speak, then you're able to get a real check on who and what you are and for what basis you originally came here for. And then that evolution that you do comes from that space. If it comes from anything else outside of that cycle, it tends to be um, corrupted. Not tends to be, it's corrupted from the original seed self. It's corrupted from your original being. Your ancestors play a key role because they are part of that return to the original. Okay, they are part of that, of your roots. Without those strong roots, the tree doesn't grow very far. Eventually it becomes sterile or destructive, and or it just basically topples over based on whatever conditions, environmental conditions happening. This applies to you as well. Whatever environmental conditions is outside of your life, if you're not rooted and deeply grounded in the earth and know what's going on underground, you easily topple. And we see this is going on in many countries today. This is why the full archetype has returned to um, be the head of state of many cultures, many nations around the world. There are foolery, a lot of foolery leadership, and that's intentional. It's a way of returning back to original seed self. It's basically the beginning of it's a new beginning actually. Whenever the fool shows up, just in yourself, in our environment, recognize we are at a beginning again. We are back to zero. Okay, so for those people who think when the full archetype shows up, it's the end, it actually is a great opportunity to do things differently, because the fool turns everything upside down, and all you have to do is look at the tarot card to know what I'm talking about. The fool turns everything upside down, so you can get things from a different perspective. You can see things from the ground up versus from the looking down at things, which gives a complete different perspective. Our ancestors see things from not just the ground up, from the root up. Okay, so they see things from even before it gets visible onto this plane. So by connecting with your ancestors, you get to have that deep insight before it actually manifests into the earth plane. And this is why many folks want you not to actually connect with your ancestors, because if you're connected to your ancestors, you will have insight, premonitions, information before other people do. Okay. A lot of the stuff I share with people, sometimes they're like, well, how did you know? I don't know. I connect with my ancestors, I connected with my guides, and then I got the message. The I that's visible to you doesn't know a thing. It doesn't know a thing. All that I know comes from my mind, which is made up of information from those that have come before me. I know nothing without a message from my ancestors, my guides in nature, and also from what people call the Akashic records. Um, Akasha is the original woman, of course, the original being, the first mother. But we'll have another conversation about that. Uh, where was I going? Ancestors and humility. Staying close to the ground is going to be very important in the years to come, because things have shifted completely now. We are at a time of I don't want to be like a sad story person. That's why I'm trying to find the right word to say it. We are at a time of new beginnings. That's a good word. Good words. New beginnings. Whenever there's beginnings, that means there's endings. Okay, so read between the lines. We are at a time of new beginnings, which means a lot of endings are going to be happening worldwide. Worldwide. This is not necessarily bad, because, as you know, wherever there's destruction, there's also opportunity. And it's not opportunity to take advantage of people and opportunity to abuse. It's opportunity to reroot, to reground, to reconnect with the deeper roots, to really plant yourself in this earth. So you've probably seen me sharing a lot about you belong. You belong here. The only way you're going to believe that you belong is if you get connected to your ancestors. Point blank, period. You're not going to feel that you belong by connecting to the ethereal realm, because the ethereal realm will tell you you belong in the ethereal realm. That's why we got so many people who are trying to make their homes in the outer skirts of the world. I mean, the outer planets. And they are going to do that. And that's fine if that's what they're here to do for now. But however, for some of us, we're here to reroot, replant. Um, some of the cases uproot literally and go someplace else and replant ourselves and create new roots. Some people are here to reconnect to the deepest root that they have on this plane, on this planet, in order to rebirth a new tree, a new branch, a new leaf, and so on and so forth. Let me see if there's anything else I need to add to this. Yeah, the last thing I just got is not to be afraid. Go figure. Some of you are terrified of connecting with your ancestors. You're terrified of going into the dark aspect of yourselves because there's so much stuff in there. And yes, they are. And all of it is your stuff. Some of it is external, but for most people, it's all your stuff. Um, you have to go in there at some point. And I try not to share that often with people because it can seem a little negative. But you have to go in there at some point and go into, when I say in there, into your mind and actually explore some of the ancestral stuff as well as some of the stuff that you have put in there, purposefully, consciously, subconsciously, and others have put in you, and so on. One of the ways we can overcome fear is by taking baby steps. So my recommendation would be, don't jump all the way in. Put a big toe in, put a little toe, put your foot, put, as that song go, put your left foot in, your right foot out. It literally is a therapeutic statement, that little song. So just start where you are at, however small that might be. Don't judge yourself if you can, or try not to judge yourself, and just recognize everybody started somewhere. Uh, and for some of us, it may look like somebody took a big leap, when in actuality they've been taking baby steps this whole time. You just missed all the baby steps and caught them when they're somewhere at the big leap. I don't know anybody who has not um, taken baby steps. Uh, okay, I got distracted because this guy just drove backward. He must have put the car in backward and just literally went up on top of the grass by mistake. And thank goodness he didn't hit the building behind him. So maybe this could probably relate to, sometimes we do have to take step backwards in order to go forward. So if you have to do that, understand that's okay too. The only person that judges you is really you. Everybody else is so busy trying to figure it out. They're not really judging. They may show up as judges, but that's really internal judging being reflected. Once you stop judging yourself, you realize the rest of the world is busy trying to figure their own stuff out. The rest of those out there, unless of course we're talking about constructive criticism or people who are just in their inner nature judgmental. Okay, another subject. So thanks for watching. Feel free to share questions about humility. This is going to be a 9-day share, and I am to dive as deep as I can because it's part of my graces that I work on as often as I can, every day. uh, and I'd love to connect specifically to what's concerning you in your life rather than just what I'm sharing. I like to stick as close to the ground as I can this time around before I start going up again. All right, so thanks for watching. This is Tutu signing off.